Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my husky, hairy, huggable homos to chat about something near and dear to our hearts. That, of course, being movies and bears and podcasts, hence the Movie Bears podcast. Anyway, welcome. Hello. So glad to have you with us this week. We've got a big show coming at you. We're going to be talking all things Godzilla versus Kong, the newest installment in Legendary's Monsterverse of films. We're also going to be revisiting South by Southwest Film Festival because so many great films, so much to talk about. It just couldn't be contained within one episode last week or the episode the week before. So this will be our third South by episode, and you know what? We are completely okay with that. So we're going to talk Kong and Godzilla first. Then we'll go into South by. Plan appropriately. If you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., feel free to skip around as needed. Let me introduce you to my co-hosts who are going to be helping me to have these discussions, because I think it wouldn't be a lot of fun to listen to me talk for an hour and a half solid. Jim Pugliafico, thank you for saving people from the sound of my voice for that long. How are you?
Saving people? I don't know. Maybe I just kind of like restore balance to the podcast universe. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, babe. Really looking forward to this one. We were definitely looking forward to the movie. So definitely want to talk about it with you guys. I have a feeling we're going to have a good discussion.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot to talk about. And I think it's going to be a howling good time, especially because William Lindis is with us. Hey, Will, what's going on, friendo?
Hey, I've emerged from the ocean. I'm going to set right what's been wrong. With a fearsome howl and I don't know, like a radioactive blast. Yeah, I'm ready for this one. Actually, I'm really ready for this one. This feels like the first, dare I say it, kind of like return to normal movie of the pandemic. I this it's a big blockbuster. Enough people have been vaccinated that people are starting to get back out into the theaters. So I don't know. This one feels like a return to form, and I'm excited to talk about like how good it is, but it still feels good to just be kind of back in this space.
Yeah, definitely understandable. It was really cool. I know we'll get into the movie discussion here in a second, but it was neat seeing friends over the weekend who have been fully vaccinated for a few weeks now, getting into movie theaters to see this. Part of me was super jelly because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a week away from my vaccine being full strength. I don't know if we'll get into movie theaters right away, but it gave me a little hope that, maybe at some point that's coming. So totally.
The return of the big blockbuster, the return of the IMAX movie, the return of getting out of the house and doing things. I haven't yet, but still just knowing that those things exist and that space outside of my home is still in some way, shape, or form being preserved. I don't know. It's like a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a giant Godzilla v. Kong shaped light at the end of the tunnel, maybe.
The return of my big butt in a movie theater seat with a bucket of popcorn. That's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah. We've got some folks hanging out with us in the live chat. Bruce Perky says, hiya, friendos. Jim, that's where I got that friendo term. I was going to use that as a lead-in to say hi to Bruce. But this works too. Hey, Bruce. Good to see you. Welcome.
Hey, Bruce. No country for old friendos.
Oh, that's a good one. I like it. Jordan Riley is with us as well. Hey, Jordan. Jordan says, hey, Bears. Hey, Jordan. Good to see you. By the way, congrats on your new car, my friend. Looks awesome. Super excited for you.
And now in Facebook news. All right, Jordan. Jordan's an old friendo of the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. He's been on several of our episodes, so it's good to see him back here.
Breaking news.
Breaking Facebook news.
And now back to Jim for the weather. Anyway, so we do have muy mucho to talk about on the show this week. So we aren't going to pull any punches. We're going to jump right into it here in just moments with our discussion of Godzilla versus Kong. If you are a new listener of the show, you may not be familiar with our format. A, hello, welcome, glad to see you. B, FYI, we're going to talk about Godzilla versus Kong, spoiler-free, for probably about 15 minutes or so before we open up the can of spoilers. But fear not. Unlike some other podcasts that are like, we're not going to spoil you at all, and then they spoil everything, and they're like, whatever.
That's not a spoiler.
Yeah, bullshit. We respect the spoiler agreement that we make with all of you. So when that 15 minutes is up, we'll give you a fair warning before we make that transition. So you can hop away if you're listening live, maybe come on back for our South by discussion. You won't want to miss that. We've got some great films to put on your radar. And again, if you're listening, a few days after we've recorded this, a few months, a few years after we've recorded it, just use the time index in the show notes. Jim spends a lot of time putting that together for you. And Jim, we love and adore you for doing that. Thank you so much. So
glad to do it.
We're going to be really kind about the spoilers. We're going to give you a warning before we tell you all about how Godzilla v Kong actually exists inside of a snow globe on a child's mantle. Like, we're going to wait to...
Well,
God,
that's almost as bad as telling people that they stop fighting because they both have a mom named Martha.
Mothra?
Right?
Why did you
Or
say
Mothra.
that name?
Martha. Wait, you said Mothra or Mothra?
Mothra.
Now we need to see Martha. That would be amazing. Anyway, all right.
Well, don't forget. I mean, the time index is cool for people who want to skip around, but there are people out there too, and we're grateful for these people who listen, who want to jump right to the spoilers. Right? They're like, fuck these guys and their opinions. Let's just go right to the spoilers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to hear what happened in this movie, and that's cool too. So that's what it's there for.
Choose your own adventure, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Either way, here we go. Our discussion of Godzilla versus Kong. All right, Jim, I literally can think of no better person than you to kick off this conversation because you are probably the biggest Godzilla fan I have ever known in my whole life. And I love that about you. So tell us a little bit about Godzilla versus Kong, your experience seeing it. Was it good? Or maybe not? What did you think?
What makes you think I'm one of the biggest Godzilla fans you know? Does it have anything to do with the 4 Godzillas in my background right now?
Or maybe this 70 Godzilla movies we've watched together? I don't know.
I know. Yes, I am a big Godzilla fan. So I was, like a lot of people, I think super excited for this movie. Yes, because it's a Godzilla movie. Yes, it's bringing Kong back into, pitting him against Godzilla, supposedly in this movie. And there was a lot of talk before the movie about what was going to go down. And then the trailer came out. So what we have here is probably, I think it's the 4th installment of kind of the new monster verse that's happening, starting with the 2014 version of Godzilla that we got. Then we had Skull Island, the Kong movie, and then just a year or two ago, 2 years. Well, it was before the pandemic, so it was at least 2 years ago. We got Godzilla King of Monsters, and now we're into Godzilla versus Kong. I'll just read the IMDb description, although pretty much everybody knows what this movie is going to be about just by the title. It's the epic next chapter in the cinematic monsterverse that pits 2 of the greatest icons in motion picture monster movie history against one another. The fearsome Godzilla and the mighty Kong, with humanity caught in the balance. So we did not see this movie in a theater, although it did very well, I think, kind of busting the doors open a little bit more on theaters this past week. Also did very well for home viewing. I forget what the numbers got up to, but I remember reading something about how well this movie did for movies that had been released during this pandemic. And that's good news, right? That's just, regardless of what we feel about the movie, I think that's really good news to get a blockbuster back in there, get people excited about seeing movies again. But yeah, even a movie with the emotional stakes for me, I'm not quite there yet of going to the movies. I was tempted to do one of these private screening things where you kind of rent out the movie theater and bring, like, I don't know, some number of friends, like 20 friends or something like that could be in your bubble to watch it. But didn't pull the trigger on that. Instead, we watched it at home with some friends who were in our bubble, and that was fun enough. So that was cool. What I thought about the movie, boy, I have so many thoughts about this movie. I'm just going to kind of rattle them out there. Number one, it's a Godzilla versus Kong movie, but in the end, I'm going to say that I kind of see this after watching it as maybe more of a Kong continuation movie than really a Godzilla and Kong movie. And we'll get into the reasons why when we get into spoilers. And that's not disappointing, because I'll be honest with you, of the previous 3 movies I mentioned, I actually kind of loved, we rewatched them, and I actually kind of loved Kong Skull Island, way better than I thought I remembered liking it when I first saw it. I thought it's actually one of the better movies of the 4 in this series. I just think kind of everything kind of hangs together in terms of the balance between what's happening with the monster at the center of the movie, or monsters, and what's happening story-wise or character-wise. Because that's a balance that is very, apparently, if you watch these films, very, very difficult to get right. Have they got it right yet? Exactly? I don't think so. Did they get it right in this movie? Absolutely not. I really loved the seeing Godzilla and Kong together on the screen. I thought the representation of both monsters was great. I thought the fights, and yes, there are fights. We know that from the trailer. I thought the fights were great. I thought the virtual camera work and video effects, CGI stuff in this movie was fantastic. Sound design, just really great stuff all around. Anytime these monsters were on the screen, that's when I was really interested. Where the movie sagged for me, and I know I'm gonna hear it from people, but almost anything to do, with one exception, with the human characters and the plot that drives this film. First of all, I thought the plot was really not very good, not very interesting to me. The human characters, many of them were what I will just say disposable to the story. Really bugged me to see that. Luckily, we got a good balance in terms of time-wise between the monster fights and the characters. It seems like they maybe threw away some of the old, some of the story that was kind of building up in the series of movies. They kind of pushed it to the sideline a little bit and went and did their own thing, which is fine if it works. But in this movie, it just didn't work. I would say for fans of Godzilla and Kong, you want to see them fight, you're going to watch this movie. But to me, they still have not gotten the balance right between a compelling, interesting plot and human characters that balance out the monsters and actually tie together really well with the monsters. Not in this movie. There was a little bit of it. If you watch the trailer, there's a little girl that's featured in this movie that I thought was probably the best non-monster storyline in this whole movie. And it was right from the very beginning. I'm like, oh shit. When she's on screen, I'm like, that was amazing what they just did. And I'll talk about that later in spoilers. But yeah, to me, it's a tough one to pan because I just love the monster battle so much, but I just wish they had done more that made sense and held together and was emotionally strong and interesting with the non-monster stuff, meaning the plot that gets us there and gets us through the fights, as well as the characters that are in that plot. So that's what I think.
All right. So sounds like you're kind of middle of the road on the film, or are you saying
Yeah. I would say for, like I said, if you're a fan, it's a must see. But if all you're there for is to see these two behemoths go at each other, I think you're going to be happy with the stuff. There's some really eye-popping stuff in here in terms of that. So that's worth it. But for me, I'm a story. You know me, I'm a story guy. I want to know, it's the story behind the action that makes the movie for me, not just a bunch of action thrown on the screen.
Yeah.
And the story just didn't come together for me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for weighing in. Appreciate that. A couple of thoughts in the live chat, and then Will, I would love to hear from you. Jordan Riley says, feel like the movie should have been 30 minutes to an hour longer. I felt like it was shorter than it should have been. Interesting note, Jordan. Yeah, this movie clocked in, I think, at just under 2 hours. We're used to these giant blockbuster films being 2.5, 3 hours long now. I don't know how we got from,
4 hours,
hour and 20 minutes, to 4 hours and 4 minutes, Snyder cut. But hey, and Jim, to your point about Godzilla, Bruce, who we love and adore so much, says Godzilla is just kind of an inciting factor. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more, especially as we get deeper into our conversation. But definitely a good point to bring up. Also, by the way, Pete says, what's up, fellas? Hey, Pete. Welcome. Glad to have you with us on the show this week. Hola. All right. So, Will, tell us a little bit about your thoughts. Did you brave going out and seeing this with like friends in a quarantine bubble? Did you watch this at home? And what did you think?
So I watched this. I did not watch this in theaters. I'm just clearing the 2 weeks after. So, like tomorrow I can go back into the world, what have you. But we have a quarantine bubble. And so me and Scott and our buddies, Rob and Nakia, got together and we put this on, played with the dog, and, and had our own little movie night. And I was thankful for that. It's a fun movie to watch with friends. And I do miss that from the theatrical experience, granted, not like the talking or, that stuff, but, still like just the communal aspect of theater. It even sitting alone in the dark, you're connected with all the people, around you. This movie itself, I think this movie is a strong example of, it is what it is, and what it is good enough for what it is, no more, no less. Because this movie, I think for me, this is, of the 4 films that have come out as part of this series, the 2 Godzillas, Kong Skull Island, and this is probably one of the most self-aware movies, in that I think that it knows exactly what it is, what it's trying to be. It wants to set up a plot and a storyline and human characters around things, but it really wants to, whenever possible, drive things back to action. It always tries to convert things back over to, we want to see a fight, we want to see a set piece, we want to see something along those lines. And because of that, I have a hard time disliking this movie. I think that this movie was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with this movie. The story is dumb. The story does not work very well at all. And the characters are, except for 2 that I really enjoyed, the characters are pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem that we run into with Godzilla movies. In fact, I think this is my favorite of the 3 Godzilla movies, mainly because I think it's the one that figured out how to do Godzilla, American Godzilla, the best. And that's to pit him against another character who has more of an emotional stake in the story, and that's Kong. Kong really is the protagonist here. We get to see things more through Kong's lens, and Godzilla is more just to sort of set the more, I guess, is world building and action set piece than character building. And I think that's pretty telling. I think that's pretty telling that, they haven't quite cracked the code on a good American Godzilla film yet. And the best way to do it is to have Kong sort of steal the show. I don't know.
And Raymond Burr. More Raymond Burr. Yeah.
I mean, you have something like Shin Godzilla, which was like just so breathtakingly good, and it understood like the context of Godzilla and the structures around him and why he fits as sort of like social allegory as well as like cool action, whatever. The characters that I really enjoyed here, and I think the same ones. It's the same one that you flagged. So Kaylee Hoddle, she is a young deaf actress who's from Austin. She goes to the Texas School for the Deaf here. It sort of became a big deal when she was cast in a short film called Dear Hearing People, trying to tell people like what the experiences are like for deaf people, and that I think was part of like a South by collaboration a few years back, and that's how she sort of like got picked up and got some recognition. And I also really liked, so yes, tie into South by, but also like it's super cool to see probably the best human character from this to be kind of like a hometown girl who's gone on and doing these amazing things. I really liked her in this. That character could have been very cloying. That character could have been out of place, and it wasn't. And I also really liked Rebecca Hall in contrast to her. I think that's that core. When you start to see some of the other characters, nothing against Millie Bobby Brown, nothing against Julian Dennison. We loved him. Deadpool 2, kind of going back to a chat here with Jordan. Julian was in that. Julian was in this. He was also in A Hunt for the Wilder People. He's not very good in this, unfortunately. And I think that's mostly like the I say a lot of that more on the character. Brian Tyree Henry, great actor, didn't have enough to really do here. Kyle Chandler turns in a pretty rough performance here, just some really bad line reads, and so I think a lot of the actors I think are better than the material that they got here, and so I don't mean to slag any of them here, but I say all of that when you see Kaylee and Rebecca sort of rise above all of that and just really knock it out of the park. It makes you feel like, okay, this is how you do a human character in a Godzilla story. This is how you tell a small story in a big world. So yeah, all of that to say, this is probably my favorite US Godzilla movie. It's probably my least favorite US Kong movie. So I don't know what that means altogether. It falls kind of like right there in the middle. This movie is going to be lots of fun if you don't think too hard, if you need a popcorn movie, or if you do want to. There were scenes in this where I thought, holy shit, I wish I was watching this on IMAX, because I bet you this would have looked wonderful on the big screen. As it is it something you should rent? That's up to you. I think if you look at the poster and you watch the trailer for this, I think you'll know kind of right away what type of movie this is, and if that's the type of thing that scratches your itch. And if so, go for it. It scratches the itch quite well, but it gives you nothing beyond that, not a thing beyond that. So, disclaimer.
Set your expectations, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
definitely makes sense. And I tell you, as of next Monday, the vaccine percolating in my veins will reach full efficiency. I'm so tempted to go see this movie in movie theaters while it's still there, because I actually really want to see this movie again. I don't know when we'll return to movie theaters. Maybe it will be after it's gone. I have no idea. We'll talk about that, babe. But I actually really liked this movie quite a bit. And for some of the same reasons both of you have already mentioned, the stuff with the monsters was just phenomenal this time, and I feel like they're paying attention to the gripes is a strong word, but feedback from the fans, right? Like in the first movie, most of the Godzilla action scenes we saw were at night. In the second movie, a lot of the action scenes we saw were at night and in the rain. And a lot of the reason those things happen is because when it's dark and rainy, it's easier to kind of hide some of the blemishes from CGI. Plus, dramatically it looks cool, but it was like, can we just get some monster fights in the daytime? Can we see Godzilla in full on broad daylight kicking the shit out of something? And I feel like we got that here. So it was really nice to see. It's all over the trailers, but the Kong and Godzilla fight on the aircraft carriers was really breathtaking. Really, really cool to see. Fantastic visuals. We did get some night battles. Again, they're in the trailer. There's one where they're in Hong Kong, and everything is like brightly lit neon behind them. It just creates some really amazing visuals. And the sound is just freaking phenomenal in this film. So we watched this downstairs in our 5.1 surround sound system, and it was just so crazy because like you'd hear like Godzilla roaring from your back right shoulder, and then he's like coming around the camera, and the roar is like coming with him around the speakers. And it wasn't the same thing as seeing it in a movie theater, but I mean, it was pretty damn awesome. So really appreciated that. You mentioned the human storyline, Jim. Well, the human storylines are complete trash for the most part. 99% complete trash. The only parts of the storyline for the humans that I liked, I agree, were the things involving Kaylee and Rebecca Hall. I really wish that they would have jettisoned Kyle Chandler and Millie Bobby Brown. As much as I liked their story in the last movie, I don't know why they're here. I mean, I guess I do. Stranger Things recognition with Millie Bobby Brown and maybe trying to pick up on some threads, but we'll talk more in spoilers. But like, I was just so over their story. Every time Millie Bobby Brown was on screen, I'm like, can we please just can we just get back to the deaf girl and her adopted mom and like their connection to things? And anyway, I think you could have jettisoned 90% of the human cast and had a much better movie here. Maybe it all takes place on Skull Island and it's just those two people. I don't know. I'm not a movie writer, but it could have been better. But that said, you got to realize you're going into a freaking monster movie. Like if you've watched any other Godzilla movie in history, every single one of them has terrible human stories for the most part. Shin Godzilla poked some fun in itself. And actually, I really want to go back and watch that again, babe. I don't know if you're up for it.
I would love it. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Maybe we'll projector room that one. But Shin Godzilla poked some fun at itself with some of the things that it did with the human stories, with like, people in their titles getting progressively longer and longer and longer and more absurd. And it was like laughing at itself with how bad the human stuff was. In this movie, it's trying to get you to laugh with all the bullshit that's just happening, but it's not like a self-aware, like irreverent thing. It's like, ooh, we're going to give you a funny plot line. And it doesn't work. So I was really happy when the humans were just pretty much not on screen at all. So much incredible stuff happened here between Kong and Godzilla and other to be named things that may or may not have been in the film. I'm really excited to dive in and talk about those things with you folks. But this was a solid win for me. I think King of the Monsters is still my favorite because I have such a nerd boner for Ghidorah. But this one's probably a pretty damn close second for me. And Jim co-signed watching Kong Skull Island again. I forgot A, how much I loved that movie, but B, how much it was trying to be the next Guardians of the Galaxy. And I feel like they brought some elements of that through to this film with some of the like song choices in the soundtrack and some of the Kong moments. If you want specifics, I can get into those in spoilers.
They were a little, yeah.
I kind of see those things as like Kong personality, like from his film and his way of doing things. It was neat to kind of see those like injected into what ostensibly is a Godzilla movie, but like it's bringing elements of Kong in. I wish we would have gotten more Godzilla. It felt a little imbalanced towards Kong, but overall,
yeah,
it was a big win for me. So liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, you hit on a really good point, and I will not spoil anything, but they definitely developed the Kong character very well in this film from the last one. There are some questionable choices, which we'll get into in spoilers. Like I'm like, wait, what's going on? Why is this happening? And it fooled me, but they kind of left Godzilla a bit stagnant, like kind of left him behind in terms of developing what Godzilla is and what he means to this franchise and what he's supposed to be. It's very muddy, I think. Again, there's some stuff to talk about in spoilers, but yeah, and I think that was one of my disappointments. It's not why I ended up not liking the movie overall, but just there was an emotional. The reason why we like trying to remember her name, the girl character.
Actress is Kaylee, character is Gia.
Yeah. The reason why we like Gia's character is because she immediately has established an emotional connection with one of these monsters. And that's, you got the tiniest human character, having this close bond with this giant creature, right? That's pretty powerful stuff on the screen. They didn't do anything like that. They haven't done anything like that, I don't think, with Godzilla in the series yet. Not that they have to do the same thing, but I think that's the reason why we like those characters, because they have a real thread to the main, Godzilla and Kong. The other characters didn't. I mean, one's a podcaster, and there's a couple of other kids,
right?
Right?
Fuck those podcasters.
We hate podcasters.
Who the fuck? I mean, wants to see podcasters in anything?
Seriously, get the fuck out of our Godzilla Kong movie. Thank you.
And Millie Bobby Brown. Man, there was an opportunity missed there, because she was in the previous movie, and there was an opportunity, I think, to carry forth an emotional thread, and they totally just kind of blew it there. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they tried. And that's unfortunate. And Julian Dennison and Brian Tyree Henry character Bernie are there primarily for a kind of slapstick humor, and it didn't really mesh with the rest of the tone of the movie, which was pretty serious stuff with Godzilla and Kong, and the rest of the the origin story that they're still building for the monsters. It just really didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I would say this is probably a logical time to get into some spoilers, because we do want to save time to talk about South by Southwest films as well. I know there's so much to discuss. So we are going to go ahead and launch into the spoiler part of our show. As promised at the top, I did say we'd give you a fair warning before we took the lid off the can of spoilers. Consider this said fair warning. If you continue to listen, you listen at your own peril, where the plot of Godzilla versus Kong is involved. So just be aware of that. I'm done awkwardly rambling. But real quick, though, during the segue, Mary Kay Meadows is here. Hey, Mary. Good to see you.
Hey, Mary.
Welcome. Hola. Ben is here with us as well. Hey, Ben. He says, hi, my sexy bear friends. Good to see you, Ben. And James Castaneda says, can the humans be eaten? Can the humans be eaten?
They absolutely can, but I don't know if this movie has the real guts to eat any of the characters that they've developed.
Well, it's we're in spoilers. This is a good place to start. That's not the type of movie this is, because you have really three monsters in this one. I guess there's a few others that you see, but really there's three monsters we're going to be talking about here. Kong is the protagonist of the story. Kong, granted, the humans move him around and sort of like kickstart some things, but Kong is the one who he has the story arc. Kong has a full hero's journey, leaving the home, going on the mission, losing something, coming back again. Like Kong has the classic hero's journey here. So having him just like, even when he's like doing some of his more monstrous things, just like popping people left and right into his mouth, like squishing them. I mean, yes, he's responsible for some deaths in this, but I think that the movie would have been very tonally different if we had seen that. Likewise, Godzilla's role, they've sort of set him up as this, like, they're really playing into the ancient Earth Guardian thing, right? Like, comes up out of the ocean when something's wrong, hunts down the Titans, then goes away. I do think we lose something in Godzilla's character because of that, because he really plays much more of a narrative role than he does like a character role. He is set there to be an obstacle and then almost like a passing of the torch maybe type thing to Kong in some way, shape, or form. But we don't get to see much of Godzilla himself. And part of that is our human characters. characters. Part of that is our human characters. We're able to connect to Kong because we do have Gia there helping us translate, helping to show his humanity. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the Millie Bobby Brown character was supposed to be that for Godzilla. That's what she was in King of the Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was she, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm misremembering something. Was she ever on screen at the same time as Godzilla in this one?
I
don't believe. I
think so.
She was mostly in the lab,
Right.
They had their
yeah.
infiltration storyline, and that's the missed opportunity. I think that if you really wanted to bring those two stories together, I think you bring the Millie Bobby Brown character into the world of what Gia's doing, and the two of them, jettison some of the other characters. We don't need the podcaster, we don't need the best friend. Get Millie Bobby Brown's character over into that storyline with Rebecca and Gia, have her going to the Hollow Earth. As dumb as it is, if you're going to go with that, get your characters there so that they can do it. And there's another thematic thing too. Millie Bobby Brown is also a deaf actress. So I think just the idea of having having a Hollywood blockbuster starring two young deaf actresses is amazing. But they never let the characters appear on screen at the same time. So they kind of they're missing out on some good opportunities. Yeah, so they really should have called this one. I think the expectation on this one, if they had called this one Kong
Part 2.
Kong From the Depths or something like that, or Kong Hollow Earth or something like that, and still had the Godzilla elements in it, but definitely made it more of a in a title, a Kong movie. I think that people would have had probably a stronger reaction to it overall because the product and the label would have matched a little better.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is weird in that, at the end of the film, after Godzilla and Kong stop fighting each other and they take down Mecha Godzilla, they have this moment where they're screaming at each other, and Godzilla basically reclaims dominance and Kong submits, right? For this being such a Kong focused film, it felt a little weird for him to ultimately submit to Godzilla and Godzilla go back into the sea. Also, this movie does some interesting things to try and bring Kong on the level playing field with Godzilla. So they go to the Hollow Earth. Apparently they find the ancient home of the Kongs, and there's an axe with a Godzilla scale as its blade that can absorb the radiation, and then it becomes a magic energy axe, right? And so if Kong does not have that axe, guys, and if Kong keeps taking blasts from Godzilla, the one blast that partially hit him seared off the whole side of his arm, does Godzilla even come close to winning in a fight?
I don't know. You're right. I mean, they definitely had to level the playing field. They grew Kong, number one, from Skull Island to this movie. He had grown. He had matured or grown. And that's fine. I'm okay with all that and leveling the playing field. The Hollow Earth thing could have been really interesting. It could have. But I don't think it was very clear. Okay, was that just Kong's ancestral home, or was it actually both of them? Is that where they?
That's where they originate from. They did establish, right? They did, at least according to the Hollow Earth theory, thank you, Skarsgård, that this is where all the monsters come from. And we see a bunch of different types of monsters.
Right.
Also in Kong Skull Island, they said that those big holes that come up out of the ground that the skull crawlers were coming out of, that they were coming from the, quote, Hollow Earth.
That's right. Skarsgård was in this movie.
Yep.
But they never really established, at least for me, that Godzilla was part of the Hollow Earth thing. They just didn't. They never showed him there, number one. As far as I remember, I don't think he was ever there in the movie.
Was the ancestral Godzilla home from King of the Monsters, was that supposed to be in the Hollow Earth as well? Because I thought they explained that's how Godzilla gets around the world so quickly, as he goes underwater through these Hollow Earth places. Didn't we see a giant
They said that.
statue?
I just wish they had. They said that. I just wish they had given us more of that, because it felt like Kong came from there. That's where he's he goes, he regenerates. That's where his family and stuff is. And yeah, it has an outlet on Skull Island. And by the way, what happened to Skull Island between the Skull Island movie and here? Now it's like artificial. It's like what was that movie with Jim Carrey?
Like the Truman Show, the True Monkey Show.
It was the Kong Show. It was like Kong Show.
They do give an explanation for that. So in Skull Island, remember they say that there was like a giant storm that was over the island, and it finally broke enough that the satellite was able to see the island. That's how they discovered it. And then, they send the team to find it. So I think what we're supposed to believe is that this island is usually covered in giant, crazy storms. And since Monarch, discovered the island, they sent
it wasn't
people
secret
there
anymore.
Right. They built a containment unit, supposedly, so that Kong would be protected from Godzilla, and Godzilla wouldn't be able to sense him. Because there was this whole plot line in the last movie about all the monsters like reacting to the orca frequency or whatever with Ghidorah and like coming to submit. And everyone was like, well, why didn't Kong come? So we needed a reason that Kong wasn't part of the events of the last movie, and that was it.
And honestly, I'm okay with that. Like, I think that they could have spent another hour going through all of that, and the end result would have been the same. The end result is the last movie wasn't a Kong versus Godzilla movie. This movie is a Kong versus Godzilla movie. Sometimes, like with these, like kind of like sci-fi, and I use that air quotes, like popcorn sci-fi blockbusters. All they have to do is put sort of a hand wave in place, and I'm on board. But like that's all they need, in this case. And it all checks within the story. Look, a bunch of like scientists who also hire mercenaries discover an island where there's a resource that they want. In between movies, is it a hard thing for me to think that they decided to like pull a bunch of tech there and sort of wall it off for themselves? No, I mean, I think about like the way a lot of things happen here on our actual real Earth, which does not have a hollow core. We find something, we go for it.
Yeah, especially since it's been 50 years, right? Since the events of Kong Skull Island, Monarch has had a long time to set up shop. So.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, even in the old Godzilla movies or monster movies, you're right. All this stuff that kind of supports the existence of these creatures or tries to explain it is all typically done very clumsily and very suddenly. Like, oh my God, like we're going to develop a secret spacecraft that comes from another planet, and lo and behold, it's Ghidorah. It turns some monster cells into Ghidorah. You're right. I mean, they don't always make sense. It's more of just a driver to get to the real action, and that's what you get in this movie. I just wish, I don't know. Maybe I'm over expecting, but I am expecting in today's day and age, knowing what we know about storytelling and stuff, that they could maybe stitch something a little bit more interesting together, because it to me it adds. It makes me care about what's going on more. What was cool for me, and I want to mention this moment, like at the very beginning of the movie where we meet the girl's character, Gia. And she's, that whole scene where she's got the doll and Kong is kind of walking through the forest or whatever in the containment unit, and she's somehow out there. And then like the sound design goes like you don't know that she's hearing impaired, right? But then the sound design goes right, and you can barely hear like muffled whatever. That was a beautifully done scene. That to me, that's like showing, not telling, done to perfection. And I'm like, oh shit, we're in for a fucking great movie if they continue this stuff. But they really did.
Very Sound of Metal and kind of the way that they handled that part of the sound design. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's just, as they've shown with most of the human stuff here, I don't think that's what this movie is about, and I don't think it's what they cared to write as much about. And so anything that kind of gets us past the explanations and to the monsters, I think gets the movie where it wants to be. Now there was a third monster. and I think we should talk a little bit about the third monster.
Oh yeah.
And that third monster being Robo Godzilla, no, Cyber Godzilla, no, Mecha
Godzilla.
I groaned a little bit as they sort of like had to stumble into saying the name, but still, you
mean that dramatic close up on Julian Dennison, like it zooms in and he's like, "No, it's Mecha Godzilla."
Yeah,
that was really fucking cheesy.
It was bad. Do I like? There's a world building thing that I do like here. Like if you're going to explain Mechagodzilla and explaining it like, oh, the psychic link between the Ghidorah heads. Like I think all of that makes that makes sense to me. Like enough sense. Enough sense. Like what we needed to do. Like again, these Godzilla movies are, maybe aside from like the first one, they're B sci-fi, like giant monster attacks because of radiation, and it's for the fun and it's for the spectacle and all that. And so I like, they gave me an explanation that worked. I didn't like how much time the character spent trying to find out about the explanation and like the kind of the jokey infiltration and all of that stuff. That was tedious. That was a tedious watch. But the actual core of it, like, I think you could have cut over and think, how are you doing this? Here's how. Okay, cool. Great. Now he's fighting. I liked seeing Godzilla and Kong working together and working against each other. I that's always a thing I like, is like when your characters who are supposed to be pitted against each other then have to team up against something else. I like that Godzilla is the stronger fighter and Kong like uses tools and smarts just to sort of keep up. But even when he was like kind of ahead in the fight, it never felt like he was muscling ahead. It always felt like he was just sort of like hanging in by a thread in those fights versus Godzilla. I like the way Mechagodzilla felt like a real threat. Is there a little bit of the end sequence that's a little bit like Michael Bay's Transformers, like, big things explode and go boom? A bit, but it looked pretty, and those Michael Bay movies don't look pretty, so there's at least that.
I actually thought the way they resolved it with Mechagodzilla and the slapstick meets pouring booze into the console and like weakens a Mechagodzilla and the two, I think that robbed us of a little bit of like better monster action. You know what I mean? Like Godzilla and Kong against this, because it didn't seem to last very long. Like it was like, okay, we got like a minute of them trying to beat Mechagodzilla, who's looks really powerful. And then, Julian Dennison decides to pour the booze in the control panel, and that saves the world. You know what I mean? And that felt so cheesy and cheap in a way that I think maybe robbed us of a better resolution to the movie.
Oh, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you guys permit me to, as much as I hate doing this sometimes, rewrite a scene. Okay, take the Brian Tyree Henry character out, take the pouring of the alcohol out of it, but you still have Millie Bobby Brown, and she still finds out about the other like the one head that controls the other one. If you set up something to where she has an interaction with Godzilla in some way, shape, or form, I don't know how. She's up on top of a building, she's hanging out of a helicopter, someone does some bullshit to get her there, and she in some way, shape, or form communicates to Godzilla like, hey, what you need to destroy is there. And so Godzilla turns his radioactive breath and blasts through the ground into that lab, destroying the other head, bringing down Mechagodzilla. Is that the perfect ending to that movie? I don't know. Is it better than what we got? I think so, because it gives the Millie Bobby Brown, the Godzilla connection some agency.
Will you permit me to rewrite a scene?
Go for it.
Fuck yeah.
Picture it. The Hollow Earth. There's a man in the Hollow Earth that somehow a human has been living there for years at this point. He's all kinds of crazy, scarred and bald, but somehow he's alive. It's Bryan Cranston from the first movie who faked his own death to follow the theories of the Hollow Earth. And he's there to help the hero characters, help Kong and help Godzilla take the fight to Mechagodzilla.
Sure. You know why? Because this movie is Batman v Superman, right? And what that is right there, And what that scene is there is you'd just have to do some like whatever, like flimsy temple writing to get that to happen, right? But like movies like this are fan service mashups, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. You go to these movies to see like oh shit, they are doing Mechagodzilla, or like, oh wow, that's Mothra, or oh, that's the character from the last thing. That's what you go to these movies to see. So yeah, Bryan Cranston's like a recognizable actor from the last movie, or from the last movie. So sure, go for it, do it. Why not?
Did it kill you guys also to see the descendant of a Serizawa, who's a descendant of a Serizawa, go bad?
What the fuck was up with? First of all, I didn't even realize he was the son of
grandson or whatever,
or whatever he was. I had no idea. I just thought he was some like stereotypical Scott Pilgrim versus the World, like mustache twirling villain character, and apparently he's related to Serizawa. So that was weird.
That's another opportunity missed, I think. There.
Another big opportunity missed. Bruce says it here in chat. What if we had a scene in Hollow Earth Past and Kongs live upside down and Zillas live right side up and they jump to fight in zero gravity? Yes. I mean, at this point, again, movies like this need to just end up saying, yes to like the weird, wacky, just like whatever they think will be the coolest shit. Throw that at the wall and spend less time kind of like with the human stuff. Like make the human stuff still exist. You need some of it. You can't have you need that, but strip out the stuff that does, that feels extraneous, and then just fill everything up with just like the biggest, most over the top weird shit possible. Like just have fun.
Embrace the fuckery,
Yeah.
Like what if Godzilla and Kong are fighting in the zero-G part of the Hollow Earth, but then the other monsters that live there jump up and start trying to fight too. And now Kong and Godzilla are back to back, Cobra Kai, Miyagi-Do style, fighting to protect each other's people. That'd be amazing, Bruce. Can we have that happen? That'd be awesome. Thank you.
I would have even been okay with like these like monster flashback scenes to like some of these ancestral, like if this is the ancestral home of Godzilla and Kong, like Godzilla against some of Kong's ancestors or whatever, like that showed some of that. I just didn't get a sense that both monsters were attached to the Hollow Earth.
Kong picks up the axe, and there's just a moment where he like closes his eyes and just gets this like image. It's like a 2-minute like flash of just like two Kongs fighting Godzilla, and it's just like it's like frenetic. It's hard to kind of fully see what's happening, and you see one of them chip off the scale and like take it to do something with it later.
Take it to the palace.
Yeah, and again, like it's. As the one that brought this up, it is lazy for me to say here's the movie, and my criticism is I'm going to rewrite it. But I think that the reason that this type of thing is really ripe for it is that there's so many story opportunities that feel like they could have been woven together better. I don't think this is a bad movie. I don't think it's a poorly directed movie. I think Adam Wingard does a good job of sort of like pulling these types of things together. I think that there is just something that felt like it was stitched on and by committee, and it really just needed to like strip out that stuff and just lean into the fun.
Well, I'm just looking forward to the deleted scene of the Godzilla ancestral flashback where we discover that the Godzillas actually live in like a giant Smurf village like area, and like all the Zillas are different. There's Brainy Zilla, who's like super smart. There's Papa Zilla, who's the leader. Don't forget Zilla-ette, who's the one female Godzilla for like all of them, right? Handy Zilla, who builds the stuff for them. And then the Kongs come and invade, and that's what starts the conflict, right? That we're now fighting thousands of years later in the streets of Hong Kong. So
that theme song totally goes Godzilla la 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 la.
At least we got Hong Kong during Pride. You know what I mean? All those rainbow neons were definitely looked like Pride Kong.
We're watching this.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
With our good friend, like I mentioned, like Rob and Nakia, and Rob is one of like the absolute like biggest Tron fans in the world, and I flagged like, hey, like everything looks very much like Tron right now. He sat up.
Where are the light cycles? Yeah. All right. Well,
Ooh.
Bruce is taking off. Bruce, love you, friend. Hope you're doing well, and hope to catch up with you again soon. Thanks for hanging out with us. Folks, we're going to go ahead and transition over to our South by Southwest discussion because we're an hour into the show and we still got some movies to talk about. I feel like there's more we could say on Godzilla versus Kong, but I think I want to see it again before I revisit any thoughts. So we're gonna put a fork in it for now. As we talk about our South by Southwest films, we'll just give you a little warning up front. Or anti-warning, maybe, I guess. Because these films have not been released yet, these films may not even have a release date yet or a distribution deal. We're not going to be spoiling the plot of the films that we talk about. You think of this as like an extended plugs section. We're just going to be talking about some things spoiler-free that we really enjoyed from the festival that we think you might like too. And just give some general thoughts and impressions, why it's good, why it might be worth checking out if it eventually and when it eventually becomes available to you. So keep that in mind. Jim, Will, are you ready to revisit South by Southwest Film 2021?
Oh,
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Jinx, Poke, one of you owes each other a Coke.
Coke.
All right.
Well,
here we go then. Yeah, totally. Here we go then. South by Southwest Film Part 2. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about a few films that we had a chance to catch up with during South by Southwest Film Fest 2021. Thank you again to Janet Pearson and crew for such an amazing film festival. It was all virtual online this year. We saw so many incredible narrative films, short films, documentaries, episodic things. There were even experiences happening in VR. So many cool things. It's hard to distill that amazingness into just a few podcast episodes, but you know what? We're going to try. So strap in, get ready. We're going to put some things on your radar you're going to want to check out when they become available. Will, why don't you kick us off? What is one of the films you saw that you think everybody else should maybe see?
Yeah, we hit on it very briefly during our previous discussion, but I think one that really feels of the moment in a way that I'd like to celebrate is a film called I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking. This is a kind of a brisk 90-minute dramedy. It's more of a drama, but it definitely has some comedic and light moments kind of woven in there too. So there's this woman and she has a young girl, like 8 years old, recently widowed, like very recently widowed, and they are homeless. And so what she decides to do is set up like kind of in a tent in like a camp, a spot with her and her daughter, not letting her daughter know that, they're without a home right now. But so that she can go out and try to make a little bit of money on the side, doing some side jobs. She braids hair. She does hair. And so that she can save up enough money to try to get a place to live. So that's the sort of the premise for this. This whole movie is set over the confine of like one day. One day in this woman's life as she's skating around from place to place, meeting up with people that, like she's already had jobs with, doing a couple of like side jobs, kind of gig economy type things as well. And running into sort of like setback after experience after setback sort of along the way. It is a film set in COVID, which means that you see people with like, the masks on, but without like them ever saying like, it's a pandemic and we have to wear a mask. It's just part of the film. It really speaks to kind of like it's a poverty narrative where the poverty is a huge part of the narrative, but it is not necessarily like, what do I want to say here? It doesn't feel like exploitative. It doesn't feel like poverty porn or anything like that. It's a crucial part of this story. It's really good. It's really good. Written, directed, and starring Kelly Kali. I think that she is someone who you should keep an eye out for because I think that she has she has the potential to sort of like break onto the scene and do some really, really great things, sort of springboarding off of this project.
Yeah, Will, I agree. This was probably one of the biggest surprise of the festival for me. And I walked away from this one, a little bit reminded of some other films maybe, but this one still had its own stuff going for it. I just loved the elements here of, we have a mother recently widowed. That's not a spoiler. So she's grieving. They've lost their home, their apartment, or wherever they were living. She has an 8-year-old daughter. She's trying to be the best mom she can for her, trying to bring in some income by going out and, getting these jobs and doing whatever she can to scrape money. The whole, the premise is she's trying to get back into a place for her daughter, right? A stable life. And, living in a tent in a park, is not, she knows it's not the best situation for her to bring up her daughter in. Number one, it's dangerous. That's probably the biggest thing. But, and you want her to do the right thing. This is a character you're rooting for the whole movie. You want her to do the right thing. You want things to go right for her. But as you said, Will, like turn after turn, she has these unfortunate events happen to her, and your heart breaks when these happen, and you're like, oh, okay, now she picks herself up onto her feet again, time after time after time. And that's what I really, really loved about this movie. Just the fortitude of this character, her outlook on life as things kind of coming at her from all sides. She never really loses sight of what she needs to do as a good mother. And this is a great, I won't say it's a family movie, but it certainly is about a family, and it's about a family that you root for. So I really love this movie.
Yeah, this film is incredible in so many different ways. And one of the things that it really did for me was make me appreciate, I think, what we have in our lives and a lot of the conveniences that we have. I've worked from home for, 8 years now. And sometimes it's like, oh, man, I'm working and I have to go all the way downstairs to like get a coffee refill. What a pain in the ass. But like in this movie, watching the character have to like skate from place to place to place to do the things she's trying to do. And we see that in the trailer. So that's not a spoiler. Like, it really makes me appreciate that, like, I don't have to work that hard just to meet like the basic needs that I and we have,
Right.
I don't have a child, but we have children, we have children in the form of cats. Like, what if I had to skate to the pet store to get cat food for the cats? Like, that would not be fun. That would be pretty shitty. So I really, really love that this film, it doesn't like browbeat you over the head necessarily, but like it does a really great job of showing, not telling, what that's like. So this is a film that was kind of on my radar to see. I had not necessarily put it in one of my film blocks, but Jim just started watching it one morning as I was about to go up to work. Thankfully, I wasn't teaching that day. My schedule was kind of flexible. So I was like, well, I'll check out 10 minutes of this film. And if I like it, maybe I'll go back and finish it later. And I just ended up watching the whole movie with Jim. So I really appreciate, babe, that you put that on while I was having my hot ham and Cheerios.
I know. It's a good thing I was watching it. Because I don't know. I would have told you anyway that, hey, there's this movie I think you might really like. And who knows if you would have watched it or not. But because I think the best thing for you to do is kind of get a flavor of the movie yourself and then make that decision. So I'm glad you circled back and watched it because, like I said, I think it's one of the better films in the festival. I hope we get to see this get some kind of release at some point.
Yeah, and I'm kind of thankful too that this film like involves elements of COVID. I know that's probably weird to say, but like when we look back, I know a lot of people want to forget the last year, but the last year is a historic part like of our lifetimes, right? So like if I ever go back and watch this movie again, and I'm like, oh right, people are wearing masks. That was the year of COVID. This film is kind of an interesting way, I think, of putting a little bit of a capstone on that.
Well, and this movie is all the way through. It is tense and gripping. There is a very real set of stakes. Can I do this within this timeline? There are very real obstacles, some of which are of varying intensity, but you always feel as though like every scene is catapulting towards something or keeping the character away from that thing. And for a film this was not a big CG blockbuster. This was not, there's no Godzilla and King Kong in this one. Everything it's a very grounded story with very real people in a very, very, very painfully real set of circumstances. It's shot in such a way that I don't know what this film cost. It probably didn't cost a lot to make, but it seems like everything was done remarkably efficiently and told the exact story that this filmmaker wanted to and needed to tell. I think about Tangerine, which is at this point, it's becoming one of my all-time favorite movies. And this movie has so many of those similarities in a way that it feels like it's very like it's a raw set of talent. Like the sense of location that you get from following this character around. I feel like I understand this part of this city so much better than if you gave me a bunch of like drone shots and playing like some sort of like pop music that has the name of the, like I got to see kind of at the streets and the communities and the areas that she's walking or skating through. I got to see that and feel that in a way that felt so incredibly visceral. This movie is the goods. And I don't know what the release is going to be like. It's hard with festivals, right? But I think that there are a lot of people in my life that I'm going to be hard recommending this movie to.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a super solid film coming out of South by Southwest. Well, we got some time to talk about a couple more. Jim, is there maybe a film that tripped your trigger you want to bring up?
Yeah, well, that one definitely did. There were several at South by this year that just kind of came out of nowhere, like they do at these festivals, and just kind of blow you away. One of which was at least partially written by somebody we've followed since early on in our South by days, Mark Duplass. This one's called Language Lessons, but this one is also co-written and directed by Natalie Morales, his co-star in this movie. This is really just a two-hander between Mark Duplass's character, Adam, and Natalie's character, Carino. And it's done again. This is another one done in this time of COVID and pandemic, where this one is done through kind of Zoom or FaceTime meetings, where where Carino is a Spanish teacher and Adam is a student who has had these lessons gifted to him. And at first you're like, okay, this is going to be stupid. It's just going to be Adam learning Spanish and blah, 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 blah. But what happens in this movie is that it ends up being such a great example of unconventional storytelling, right? Storytelling without two big monsters, like bashing each other in the screen. This is just two characters talking, learning about each other, and kind of relating on a very, at first professional, and then kind of friendship, and then just kind of a personal level, just two people talking. And I love this movie for that. I went back and watched Before Sunrise, the first of that trilogy. I just kind of love movies that can kind of take something very simple, strip it down to its bare minimum with two characters with dialogue, and make a compelling story. And this does that. And I think it's fantastic. It's called Language Lessons.
This is another one of those films that ended up on my list. It was something that I wanted to see, but I was a little fearful that it was going to be super gimmicky, right? Like, oh, filmed entirely on Zoom, video conferencing, right. Whatever. And it's interesting because we had seen a previous film by Mark Duplass where it's all pretty much like filmed on like a handheld camcorder. It's like a found footage kind of thing. And so I was like, well, I don't know. That was kind of cool. Maybe this will be too. And it ended up working out really, really well for me. It never felt like it was an intentional gimmick. It never felt like they were hitting us over the head with it. Like, oh, fancy video conferencing software. Look what we can do. It was really just sort of like an incidental, like these two people talking across the miles. And sort of developing this kinship, right? Or not relationship in a romantic sense, potentially. You'd have to watch it to find out if there are any elements of that, but more so just in terms of like, hey, they're establishing a connection of some kind. And it really reminded me a lot of the different like video calls I've been doing with friends during COVID. It's like every time I FaceTime a certain friend, he's always in a new location in his house that I've never seen before. And it was kind of the same thing with this film. Like, oh, we're in a different room of Mark Duplass's character's house at this point. Or Carino's like in a different location than we've seen her before. She's outside, you know. It was kind of neat to explore the world they live in and inhabit through technology. So my tech nerd was very happy with this film. But there's just a lot of emotional beats and stakes in this film. It's probably one of the most intimate films I've ever seen. And I mean, they're interacting over a computer, you know? So big, huge kudos to the filmmaker, to the actors, and to South by for screening this film as part of the festival. Huge freaking win.
Yeah, Mark Duplass is he's very much a staple of the South by scene now. I think that he finds himself in the types of films that South by likes to champion. And likewise, I think South by is very happy to champion him because he chooses a lot of very high quality works, especially within sort of this like indie conversational space type of film. Here, you're right. This is just a movie that is two people talking. Well, I mean, exactly as we're talking right now, like through the artifice of a screen, through that barrier, and yet it comes together so incredibly well. Partially because Duplass is such a great actor, partially because Natalie Morales is exactly at his level too. I didn't have quite as much familiarity with her comparatively, but she absolutely knocks it out of the park. And not just as a performer, I mean, she is the director of this film as well. And big kudos to her for being able to convey that emotionality. She lets the scenes go on as long as they need. She knows when to cut to, the next day or the week later, whatever it is. Like there's a momentum that carries through this movie. It never feels like it gets stuck in one scene. Even though you spend a lot of time in individual scenes, it always knows exactly how long to stretch those out and when to move those over. This is such a win. I don't know what type of audience this will receive. It's hard to think of this like what a theatrical version of this film might look like. But I think that this is the type of film that has a very, very strong chance of getting snatched up by like a Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, something like that, and being a really, really good kind of like Thursday night watch with your with your family. It's not a light watch, but I think it's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh, Jim, I think you're muted.
Can't hear you, Jim.
Your mouth moving.
Sorry, guys.
No worries.
I'm back.
Speaking of Zoom calls.
And news on that front in terms of what kind of audience this might find. It was picked up by Shout Studios. It was just in the news like today. It was picked up. Of course, it won the audience award at South by Southwest Film. And Shout Studios, and I'm not exactly familiar with what they may have already put out. And he, they're going to distribute it in North America with probably a small theatrical launch at places. I think this is probably more of a small art house kind of release with a cross-platform rollout later on in the year. But it's good to see that the movie get recognized and picked up by somebody and will get seen, which is great. Because you wouldn't want to see a movie like this fall the fate of some movies that kind of come and go at festivals and you just don't see them again because they don't get picked up. But this one did. So good on Natalie and Mark for getting this one picked up.
For sure. I got to tell you, a couple of years ago at South by, Jim and I had an opportunity to attend a talk that Mark Duplass was giving at South by. And we were like, 5 feet away from him. And he was talking about just the passion he has for filmmaking and how like everybody should be a filmmaker. Just pick up a camera and just shoot random crap in your day. And you do it enough, you'll find a great film out of it. And watching Language Lessons, babe, it just, not that I'm going to start filming every Zoom call I'm ever part of, but like it really is like putting the bug back in my ear and like rejuvenating some of that like enthusiasm and passion we soaked up a couple years ago to like put some kind of short film together. Like we could do something interesting and cool that, doesn't involve a lot of money. You could just do it over a freaking computer. Who knows? Maybe we could have something at a film festival someday.
And that's not to say this film was one that they just, decide to record something. I mean,
no, I didn't this film mean it like that.
No, I know you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of elaborating on it. This film was not that, but it kind of felt like it could be almost, right? This was kind of eavesdropping, kind of like on two people. And granted, this is a scripted story and, a very well produced and directed piece of art, but it kind of has that element from the audience is that you're kind of eavesdropping on other people's like conversation.
Right.
And I dug that aspect of it as well.
Well, there's something about film too that sometimes feels as though it may not be accessible for people to just be their own version of a creator. Like when you see something that looks really highly polished, super well choreographed, big action set pieces, CGI, even just like effects and costumes. Both of the movies that we talked about today, Language Lessons and I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking. Neither of these is, again, I want to take nothing away from these movies. I think both of them are incredibly well produced, incredibly well directed, incredibly well crafted, but they don't have that artificial barrier in place that makes me feel as though like, no way in a million years could I make this. You see that, you think like, gosh, that's aspirational. Like if I have the right story and the right people, I can do this. I can, and I hope that there are people out there that are inspired to pick up a camera and make something. And even if not for a festival, make it for yourself. Make it for you, learn how to make that thing. Put it up on Vimeo or YouTube, share it with your friends, whatever, create, be creative.
I'd watch it. I'd watch it. I mean, we go to a short film festival here in Tucson. Well, we used to before COVID, First Friday Shorts, where people just bring their own films that they've created and you screen them, and it's awesome. So totally. All right. Well, looking at the clock, we're getting a little long in the tooth, but I think we can squeeze one more movie in. Will, I think there was another one you had that was on my list too. What have you got?
Yeah, I know we were both pretty excited about this one. It's a movie called Best Summer Ever. This is a teen musical. Think like high schoolers singing about like who's going to be prom king and prom queen. Unrequited love from camp. Think very much like Grease. That sort of element. But the entire cast and crew is filled with people, not entirely, but a large number of the cast and crew are people with different types of disabilities. And I think because of that, what we end up having is something that feels both very, very different and also very, very refreshing. You get to see sort of like the Will the jock meet with the awkward girl from camp. Will the snotty girl who's going for the crown take over? Any of those types of things that you see in all of these high school musicals. But again, it's with a very different cast and crew. And I like that. I love that. I am very much in this space right now where I'm all about inclusivity. I'm really all about seeing just a more diverse group of people, both in front of and behind the camera, as often as possible. So having a film here that has that type of structure is great. It looks like everyone had a blast making this movie. Like, it looked like everyone working on this. And there's even a little spot in the closing credits where you get to see kind of bloopers, but also just like all of the different people that work behind the camera as well. And everyone's just having a good time making this movie. So it's best summer ever. And it really is just a sweet, charming, it's right down the middle. You know what you're going to get with this, but what you're going to get is a smile.
Oh, for sure. And one of the things that I really loved about this film, Will, you mentioned there's a lot of folks who are differently abled in some of these roles. A majority of the roles, in fact. The film, and I feel like this is exhibited in the trailer, the film doesn't say like, oh, here's this character who is differently abled. Look at them, like how they try to become homecoming queen or whatever. It's not even like necessarily a makeup of their character. It's not like a thing that they're differently abled. It's just, that's them, and this is what they're doing. Like, I don't know. It's kind of beautiful to see it not be like a Lifetime after school special about a differently abled girl who goes on a journey to try and find true love while navigating the hazards of high school. It's just, I don't know, an incidental thing, and it was amazing. There's a lot of cheese in this movie. There's a lot of music, some of it really good, some of it maybe not as good. But just you can tell in every freaking scene they are just having a blast. But like, they're also kind of taking it seriously as well in the serious moments of the film. And I think for a film like this about high school kids of all things, to find a nice balance between that humor and the drama and like the heartfelt beats that are happening, it's kind of a special magical recipe that comes together. So big kudos to the team behind Best Summer Ever, because it's so good.
Yeah, this was really a delight to see. This was one we were actually had on our list to see last year, I believe, at South by Southwest. And thankfully they held on and stayed in the lineup for this year and got to see it. And man, it was just so fun. And I echo everything you guys said about how this wasn't about people that are differently abled. This was just a regular cheesy high school musical that happened to where the actors, some of them, the majority of them, were differently abled, and they were showing off with their abilities. And it looked like you said, they all had a blast. They weren't in this for a paycheck. Believe me, they were in this to make something fun. And that's what we ended up with. We ended up with a fun story. It was good to see Zach Gottsagen in this movie again from the Peanut Butter Falcon. If you remember him, he was in this movie. This was made, I think, kind of around. There's a troupe. I don't know if it's called a troupe or a production company that brings in differently abled people to make movies and produce art. And this came out of that kind of effort. A lot of the same producers, I think, were involved, and Zach came out of that. I got to meet him at Fantastic Fest. I think it was it South by Southwest?
I think it was South by Southwest, because I was working And
Okay.
I couldn't get down to the screening. You ended up sitting with his mom's, right?
2019. Yeah. 2019 probably. But I remember it was at South Lamar, so I always get it confused if I'm Fantastic Fest or
Peanut Butter Falcon was South by. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was great to see him. Another actor that I had met at that South by was AJ Murray, who was in this. He played Kevin in this movie. So it was great to see those faces as well as many others. I mean, Maggie Gyllenhaal shows up in this movie, which was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal and her husband. What's his name? I forgot his name. Is it Peter Sarsgaard? Yeah, I think it's Peter Sarsgaard. I think they're married, right? Or they're a couple.
Did we just find a connection between the last movie and this movie?
I don't know. Why? Anyway, Peter Sarsgaard plays a cameraman and Maggie plays like a reporter. And it's one of those happy coincidences where you could get, a couple like in a movie. And supporting efforts like this, which I think is wonderful. I enjoyed some of the stuff. I mean, even some of the songs I thought were really, really catchy. A couple of them were really, really good. So yeah, look for this one. I think this one will probably get some kind of distribution. I hope. It's called Best Summer Ever. Think of it like a combination of Grease and Glee together.
It's very Grease, very Glee. Like it's yes, 100%. And the two leads are so delightfully charming together. Ricky Alexander Wilson and Shannon DeVito. I mean, they had a lot of the movie to carry, because the story is all about these two people from these two different worlds, both kind of keeping their secrets, but also kind of with this, will they, won't they type relationship. And to tell that all the way through song, and they do such a wonderful job of it. Kudos.
I'm just so glad they didn't take it like the maudlin route of like putting like spotlights on the disabilities, you know what I mean? And make it more just like an incidental thing. So much magic in this film. I definitely hope people get a chance to see this, whether this ends up getting picked up by like a Netflix, maybe for this summer would make it the best summer ever. We'll see.
Yeah.
That would be cool. Well, we've talked about a lot over the last couple hours, guys.
Yes,
giant frickin' lizard fighting a giant frickin' ape. We've talked about film festival films, all kinds of stuff. I just want to say, to everybody that joined us in the live chat, almost everybody, this week, thank you so much for all of your great comments. We didn't get to read all of them, but definitely really great to hear your thoughts. Thanks for being part of the conversation. Will, Jim, before we wrap for the week, if people want to chat with us between now and the next time we record, Jim, where can people find you online?
Oh, yeah. Look for me on Twitter at my Twitter handle, which is at JJP Out West right here. Those are my initials, JJP Out West. That's where I do a lot of tweets and discussion about movies, old movies, new movies, stuff that's out, movie news. And also you can find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Excellent. And Will, how about for you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Whatever Cove. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis. Send me a message first so that I know who you are, that you're not a bot. You can find me on Letterboxd. Letterboxd.com is a site where people go to log and list and rank films. I do that too. So if you want to read any of those reviews or see any of my lists or just, I don't know, talk movies, find me there. You look for William Lindis, give me a follow. I'll follow you back.
All right. Excellent. And you can find me on Twitter as well as Letterboxd. It's right here on the screen as well, but at iBradPro, or find me on Facebook, Brad Harris. Just do a quick search. I'm the one that is big and bearded. Funny story. The other Brad Harris, the one who has the Confederate flag behind him, I can't find his profile anymore. I just went and checked to see if he still had the flag. I think he blocked me, guys.
What?
Maybe he found out that I was talking about him on the podcast when I was like, I'm not the one with the Confederate flag. I don't know. He's gone. I don't see him.
I'll look for him if you want.
Yeah, let's look here. Look here.
Maybe he deactivated his profile or something. Maybe he got a lot of hate over the flag.
I think he moved. I think he moved directly to Parler.
That's what it is. That's
probably what happened. He probably rage quit Facebook and moved to Parler to get involved there. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, folks. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Next episode, believe it or not, episode 400. We're going to be talking about what our plans for that show will be. We're going to figure out when it will be and what it will involve. If you're curious, stay tuned to Facebook and Twitter. We'll give you some notice when that episode is going to record, when it will air, and maybe what you can expect. So whatever form that takes, we hope you'll join us for the big 400. Not a lot of podcasts hit that milestone. I know we're going to talk about it next time, Jim and Will, but on the verge of 400, how are you feeling?
On the verge of 400. I'm feeling grateful, first of all, that we've been able to kind of, do this and talk, stay friends and talk about movies and through everything that we've been through. It seems like, I don't know. It seems like it hasn't been that long, really. But then again, when you think about it and look at the body of work, it's pretty impressive. It's a lot of stuff.
It really is. And I take absolutely nothing away from, we have some great listeners and I love every single one of you and you're such an important part of this. But ultimately for me, my favorite part of the show is this is a chance for Brad and Jim and I to hang out each week and talk with one another. And I mean, we would probably be doing something like this, probably without the plugs, but we'd probably be doing some variation of this, whether or not this was like a live show or not. So I'm just, again, grateful that the technology allows us to do this. I mean, we don't live near each other, but the technology allows us to kind of keep these conversations afloat, and I love that.
So much same, friend. Absolutely. And Jim as well. Very much looking forward to crossing that threshold with you guys on our next episode and with all of you folks who may be joining us for that. So keep an eye out. We love you. We adore you. And we'll see you all soon. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.